The rain had been falling since dawn, slow, cold, and relentless, as if the sky itself refused to stop crying. By the time Wang Yibo arrived at the memorial hall, the scent of wet chrysanthemums had already taken over the air. Flashlights from fans and reporters shimmered like ghosts on the black umbrellas that lined the street. No one dared to speak too loudly. Even the sound of heels against marble seemed to echo in guilt. Somewhere behind the closed doors, the faint sound of a piano drifted, a song that Menglong had once played during one of their quiet rehearsals. Yibo's fingers trembled around the white rose in his hand. Cameras clicked, then stopped, then lowered. Something in his eyes froze every lens. He looked older that night, not in age, but in silence. The silence that comes when words lose their purpose. Behind him, a shadow moved quietly, Xiao Zhan, dressed in deep charcoal, eyes hidden beneath a black cap. The two stood side by side, yet miles apart in thought. And when the coffin came into view, everything that had been buried between them broke free like thunder. It wasn't supposed to rain that night. The forecast had promised a clear sky for the memorial, but nature had other plans. The downpour blurred the flashlights, the tears, the confusion, until all that remained was the sound of breathing and the rhythmic beating of raindrops on wood. Inside the hall, Menglong's coffin rested beneath a framed portrait, one that captured his half-smile, his eyes full of mischief. The same eyes that had once looked at Wang Yibo with unshakable trust and at Xiao Zhan with quiet admiration. Yibo stood frozen for a long moment. Then, as if gravity itself demanded it, he sank to his knees. The rose fell from his hand. The cameras flashed once, then all at once went dark. No one dared record what followed, because grief, when it's real, doesn't allow spectators. Xiao Zhan moved forward slowly, his lips trembling, his breath shallow. When he reached Yibo's side, he didn't speak. He simply knelt too, their shoulders inches apart. The hall fell into an impossible stillness. Even the rain seemed to pause. Yibo's hand clenched against his thigh, the veins on his wrist tight. "I told him I'd come back," he whispered, his voice barely audible. Xiao Zhan turned slightly, eyes glistening. "We both did." No script, no director, just two men who had once shared dreams, laughter, and late-night ramen with the one now lying silently between them. As the mourners shifted uneasily, a low hum filled the air, the kind of sound that comes from too many people trying not to cry. The hall lights flickered, casting long shadows across the marble floor. A faint fragrance lingered, Menglong's favorite cologne, sprayed on the lapel of his last suit. Then, someone from the staff accidentally pressed play on a video montage meant for later. Menglong's voice filled the speakers. It was a behind-the-scenes clip from years ago, the three of them laughing after rehearsal. "Don't forget," Menglong had said on that tape, smiling. "No matter how far we go, let's meet again at the top." The sound cracked mid-laugh, but it was enough. Wang Yibo's shoulders shook. One tear escaped, then another. Xiao Zhan reached out instinctively, not to comfort, but to hold the moment together before it shattered completely. Reporters outside later said they could hear faint sobs through the closed doors, but none dared enter. The hall was off-limits, locked by the management after what was described as a private emotional breakdown. But one security guard, who later deleted his post in fear, had written, "They weren't just crying. It was like they were apologizing to someone who couldn't answer anymore." Hours later, when the guests had left and the hall stood nearly empty, Wang Yibo and Xiao Zhan remained. The air had grown colder, the rain softer. Candles flickered along the aisle leading to the coffin. Yibo stood again, brushing the dust off his knees. His eyes were red, but not from exhaustion. From memory. "Do you remember that night he made us promise to call him no matter what?" Yibo asked quietly. Xiao Zhan nodded. "I didn't pick up his last call." Yibo looked at him, face pale. "Neither did I." Their eyes met, not in anger, but in recognition. The kind that only comes when two souls share the same wound. There were no fans, no spotlights, no flashing cameras now. Just two people staring at a friend's coffin and realizing how fast fame can erase time. They stood like that for several minutes, until Yibo slowly walked to the coffin and placed a folded piece of paper beside the white lilies. "What's that?" Xiao Zhan asked softly. "The script we never finished," Yibo said. "The one he wrote for us 3 years ago." When the hall attendant returned the next morning, the candles had burned out, but the letter remained. On it, written in Wang Yibo's neat handwriting, were 5 words. "Forgive us for being late." The staff member swore that when she touched the note, the ink was still damp. By midday, the internet had already exploded with theories. Hashtag Wang Yibo breaks down, hashtag Xiao Zhan tears, and hashtag Menglong farewell were trending across every platform. But the one thing no one could explain was how the security footage from that night disappeared. One insider from the event team later told a blogger anonymously, "There's a 7-minute blackout in the recording, from 10:47 p.m. to 10:54 p.m. No one knows what happened inside the hall during that time. All we know is when the lights came back on, Yibo was holding Xiao Zhan, and both were crying uncontrollably." A week later, fans noticed something strange. Wang Yibo changed his profile picture to a black and white image of rain over glass. Xiao Zhan posted nothing, no captions, no photos, only a single emoji, cloud with rain. That night, a radio DJ in Beijing received a handwritten note from an anonymous sender asking to play one song in memory of Menglong, an old instrumental piece titled, "We'll Meet Again." When the DJ played it, thousands of listeners claimed the song sounded faintly, like someone breathing in the background, almost whispering. No one ever confirmed who sent that note. Months passed. The world moved on, as it always does. But the bond between Wang Yibo and Xiao Zhan quietly resurfaced. They appeared at a charity event together, avoiding cameras but seen smiling faintly at each other. Fans cried when one video caught Xiao Zhan patting Yibo on the back as they exited the stage. In that tiny gesture, millions saw something that words could never capture: forgiveness. Still, rumors persisted. Some said Menglong's family had given Yibo a small black envelope after the funeral, something he never spoke about publicly. Others believed it contained Menglong's final wish, one that tied all 3 together in ways fans might never fully know. But what remains undeniable is the memory of that night. The night rain fell endlessly, when 2 of China's most guarded stars broke the invisible wall between fame and pain, and allowed the world a glimpse of something terrifyingly human. Because no camera could ever fully capture what happened that night. Only silence did. Only the rain knew. And maybe, somewhere beyond the sound of thunder, Menglong heard them too. For years, people spoke of the blackout like a legend. 7 minutes erased from every camera, as if the world itself had blinked. Inside the hall, time slowed to the sound of rain, and a single candle struggling to stay lit. Yibo didn't notice the lights die. He was still staring at the portrait of Long Yu when the hum of electricity faded. A sharp pop echoed, then silence. Dense, alive, trembling. The air smelled of ozone and melted wax. Somewhere behind him, someone gasped. Zhao Han's voice broke through the dark. "Bo? Are you still here?" "Yeah," Yibo whispered, his throat raw. "Stay still." He reached into his pocket for his phone, the screen flickering pale blue across his face. For one instant, Zhao Han saw him, eyes wide, rain still dripping from his hair, the reflection of Long Yu's coffin glinting in his pupils. Then the phone died too. Total blackness. Outside, thunder rolled like a slow drumbeat. The doors rattled, and the portraits on the wall creaked as wind forced its way through the cracks. Yibo inhaled sharply. He hated the dark, he murmured. Zhao Han's footsteps echoed softly on marble. "So did you," he said. The 2 of them stood side by side again, shadows without outlines, their voices trembling in the void. "I keep hearing him," Zhao Han whispered. "Every time it rains, every time the stage lights fade." Yibo pressed a hand to the coffin lid, cold beneath his fingertips. He used to say we were unstoppable. That one day we'd look back and laugh at everything we thought was the end.
He paused.
I never told him I was leaving the group. The confession hung heavy. Zhao Han swallowed hard. "You were afraid he'd stop you?" I was afraid he'd follow me. A flash of lightning filled the hall. Brief, violent, blue. For an instant, the world was carved in light. The portrait gleamed. The rose Yibo, had dropped earlier lay crushed beneath the coffin stand. When darkness returned, a faint note floated through the air, one from the piano in the corner. A single key pressed down by no visible hand. Zhao Zhan froze. Did you hear? Yes. The note lingered, trembling like a held breath. Then another followed, softer, hesitant. Together they formed the first line of We'll Meet Again, the song Long Yu used to play whenever rehearsals went too long and tempers flared. Yibo's heart pounded. That piano's unplugged, he said. I know. Neither moved. The melody continued, broken, uneven, as if played by someone learning to remember. Then, almost without thinking, Zhao Zhan stepped closer and whispered, Long Yu, if this is you, you always said endings are just edits. A faint warmth brushed across their faces, a draft that smelled like cologne and rain. The candles flickered back to life, one by one, forming a circle of gold around the coffin. Yibo's breath caught. You see that? Zhao Zhan nodded slowly. Maybe he just wanted us to finish the song. So they did. No instruments, no microphones, just voices breaking in the quiet, humming the last few bars until the power roared back and light exploded across the hall. The piano lid was closed again. Every candle stood perfectly straight, their flames steady as if nothing had happened. But the paper Yibo had left on the coffin, the one marked Forgive us for being late, now had an extra line scrawled beneath it in faint pencil. You're right on time. When the recordings were reviewed later, the footage jumped from 10:47 p.m. to 10:54 p.m., a clean cut, no static, no sound. Just the two of them standing there, eyes swollen, one candle still burning. The technicians swore the system never failed before. Weeks later, during a live broadcast, a fan asked Xiao Zhan what really happened that night. He smiled gently, the kind that hides a tremor. Sometimes, he said, the world gives you 7 minutes to make peace with someone you thought you'd lost forever. The comment section exploded with theories, edits, fan art of glowing candles, and ghostly pianos. But Xiao Zhan never explained again. Neither did Yibo. Instead, they returned to work, recording a new track in Long Yu's name. The song opened with a faint sound of rain and a single piano note, then faded into silence, like breath after tears. When it premiered, listeners claimed they could hear a third voice harmonizing, soft, distant, unmistakably human. Maybe it was studio echo, maybe imagination, or maybe, for 7 stolen minutes, friendship proved stronger than time. And somewhere beyond the rain, Long Yu was still keeping the beat.